everybody would kind of like know me as the one who draws, the creative guy. So it's always been like a passion of mine. One time it was fine art, then it was like graffiti, then it was like clothing designs, and then I kind of just became interested in like, making art which has a message. Because when you look at Islamic art and calligraphy, it's always based on, a reminder. I didn't have a specific passion for logos and branding. For me, it was more just about create something which looks good, and maybe people will buy it. A lot more folks were approaching me for logos specifically, and from there it just kind of just kicked off, and I thought, okay, you know what? Let this be the main thing that I focus on. Nobody turns into a great designer overnight. Yeah, it's only through refining your skills, practicing, and so on.
A young brother who's really keen, he's really arty, he wants to get into design. What's like the main advice that you would give to him?
Life is one big road with a lot of signs and more signs. You gotta make up your mind to face reality all the time. No.
Alhamdulillah, it's good to have you here. Welcome to the podcast. This is Journey's podcast, our first episode with an in-person guest.
I'm honored, man. I'm very honored.
Alhamdulillah. So, the ethos here at Journeys, we love to hear about different types of journeys, especially, our brothers who are involved in industry or business, who have a particular talent. And just, before we get into it, you've just gone on a fantastic journey from Bangladesh to Medina to Mecca, and now you're here in Mecca with me now. So how has that journey been?
Honestly, it's been amazing, man. It's my first time going to Bangladesh in 15 years. Last time I went, I was a bit of a wild teenager.
Yeah.
Had no appreciation for the culture. Unfortunately, I used to look down on certain practices that they did, which wasn't in line with the Western, our Western upbringing.
Yeah.
So going back, it really opened my eyes. I began to appreciate the culture a lot more, valued little things like knowing the language. For example, when we had conversations with family members, with other people, we were able to clarify certain things if they had any misconceptions about, or they had a certain understanding about the way we practice our Deen in accordance to the Sunnah. I was able to clarify certain things. So like, it was a blessing, man. And it made me appreciate the little things. And then from there, came back to the UK for 2 days. Everything was so hectic. Then flew back out. Came to Saudi.
MashaAllah. So you've been worldwide journeys, MashaAllah.
I mean, not exactly worldwide, but inshallah one day.
Inshallah, MashaAllah. So your background is you're Bangladeshi, and whereabouts in the UK are you from?
So I live in a town called Loughborough. A lot of people might not have heard of it. For those who have heard of it, I'm assuming they heard of it because of the university.
Yeah.
A lot of people know about the university there. So and for those of you who don't know, or the listeners who don't know, we're next to Leicester, which is in the Midlands.
Nice. And so, in your upbringing, just before we actually get into that, maybe just let us know, what is it that you do? What's your industry and what exactly do you do?
So I'm a graphic designer / creative director. In summary, I create graphics. I create pictures, visuals, branding for companies, organizations, individuals, and so on. And maybe we'll elaborate a bit more into the podcast.
Excellent.
But in summary, that's basically what I create: visuals. In other words, pretty pictures.
Fantastic. And so when did this love for visuals, design, art, when did that kind of start? When did that spark?
So I've always been into art and design, since I was a kid. Growing up, I loved art. It was a big passion of mine. Used to do a lot of doodles, Power Rangers and Looney Tunes and all that stuff. Whatever I was seeing on the TV, I used to just, draw it out. And I was kind of like, that became like known amongst my classmates at the time. This is going back to like reception and year 1, year 2. So everybody would kind of like know me as the one who draws, the creative guy. So it's always been like a passion of mine. I pursued it in high school, pursued it in college, and then I thought, you know what, like I see myself as having some sort of potential in this. Let me just push through with it, and then again pursued it further in university, and then from there on I kind of like just started delving into the industry side of things.
So you always kind of like at school and whatever, you always kind of went with that passion and did those kind of subjects and stuff like this.
I mean, I've always been into design, but the design always changed. So, for example, it was one time it was fine art, then it was like graffiti, then it was like clothing designs, and then eventually after years of like experimenting and like dabbling in different types of creative arts and design, eventually I settled on graphic design.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
And in terms of graphic design then, so you were into, drawing, you did a lot of stuff academically at school. How did you make that kind of transition, or what did you study graphic design at university or anything like that?
Yeah, that's right. I did graphic design at university.
Okay, and then after that, how did you, let's say for example, we might have like a young brother, he's studied or he's interested in art, he's got the passion for it. What was the way or the journey that you kind of developed your own identity as a designer and kind of got involved in the business, freelance, working for other companies? Maybe you can give a bit of an advice or help.
Yeah, so in terms of like creating your own identity or having like that distinct style, it doesn't come overnight. It comes with a lot of experimentation. So like I mentioned earlier, I was doing fine art at one point, so I was really interested in that, and then from there I started developing a passion for like graffiti. And then obviously graffiti kind of like, well, not in all cases, but in some cases it intertwines with like the whole making a statement, political statements, whether it's like political or social statements or whatever it is. So then from there I kind of just became interested in like, making art which has a message. And from there I kind of just like, there's a lot of like transition from one type of art to another, and then another. So then from there I kind of like took an interest in like Islamic art, because when you look at Islamic art and calligraphy, it's always based on a reminder, or like a hadith or a ayah from the Quran, etc. Not that I some scholars have spoken against it, because the purpose for the Quran isn't for beautification in terms of aesthetics, nor for decoration. It's meant to be recited upon, and people, it could easily lead people to like seeking barakah from these ayat, etc., which isn't the purpose of the Quran. So that's kind of when I stopped doing or stopped focusing on Arabic, Quranic, but I would just I had that interest for Arabic, the letters. So from there I just thought, okay, you know what, graphic design, a lot of branding is something that I'm interested in. So let me just take my love for Arabic language and the Arabic letter form, and implement that in my graphics. So like going back to your question, I know I might have digressed a little bit. But if you want to create your own identity, just experiment, dabble in something that you might be interested in, and not just that, but then take what you're good at from each of these different art forms, and then see if you could come up with something a bit more distinct, which is unique to yourself. Don't expect it to happen overnight, because it's not going to happen, and it does require a lot of patience, and obviously dua, etc. That's basically it in a nutshell.
Did you at any point like ever have a job within a company, or were there things that kind of put you off that and you always went the freelance route, or what was the...
So I have worked with a couple of companies where I had a role of the graphic designer, but fortunately it didn't require me to do anything which was contrary to Islam. So for example, I was like creating catalogs for the products, and the products were just like there was no like, for example, it didn't require any models or any human beings to be in the catalog. It was just simply just products. Advertising their products on like billboards and so on. It was literally just advertising the products. That was it. So I didn't have to, like, alhamdulillah, I've not had to like compromise.
But was that kind of like freelance under your kind of like own operation?
No, so that was when I was employed.
Okay, so
so that's when that was early on when I finished university. That was back then.
So you kind of, after you went out of university, you got that experience, you did the thing, and then when was the point that you kind of transitioned from, being employed to, for example, what I believe you do now, which is just kind of freelance?
So I do my freelance stuff, and I also work with a company.
Okay, nice.
So my freelance stuff is kind of like, over the last year or so, I've been really focusing on that, and I'm really hoping to like set it off in the next year. Inshallah, from January onwards, that's when I'm gonna like release the website. Social media's up there, the domain's been purchased, but I just want to basically formalize it a bit more,
Mm.
because over the last couple of years it's just been a bit scattered. Like every once in a while someone contact me, I'll create the logo and that was it. But right now what I want to do, like I mentioned, I'm really into branding.
Yeah.
So I want to create not just the logo, I want to create your whole brand identity for your company, for your organization, whether that's like a charity or a masajid, etc. Just create the whole brand identity. So yeah, that's basically what I'm focusing on. Inshallah, that's gonna be my next big project.
Yeah, no, excellent. I think that's I was, brand identity and these kind of things is
Yeah.
nice, especially because you can, especially nowadays, right? Brand is so important.
Yeah.
And like, when it comes to some of these big companies, the brand transcends like all aspects. And it also brings that element of like what you're saying in terms of the message.
Yep.
Bring it out there. There was a friend of mine, his older sister. She has a similar kind of group of creatives or whatever that do branding.
Yeah.
And they had a concept. I think it was like for a cafe in Libya. So it was like the logo was like the on sign for a computer. And then the whole cafe was like, caffeine, it turns you on. So it's like, on
Yeah.
switch. And then the tables were like in that. And they also bring in like the architectural elements into that as well, which is really nice. But so what do you think, like when you're, processing your work and you're doing things, what is the biggest difficulty that you might come across when you might be, trying to do work or looking for work or maybe getting offers for work, etc.? What do you think is the most difficult thing?
I think it comes in three parts.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might be four. We'll see. But the three parts is prior to the work is dealing with the clients. Now, some clients, they can be quite difficult to deal with.
Yeah.
Most of the times, like Allah Mubarak, most of the clients I work with, they are very understanding. They're very reasonable. But then you get the odd ones who are like we mentioned earlier, they'll call you up at the last minute.
Yeah.
I need a logo. I need this. I need that. When do you need it for? Tomorrow or later today. And obviously, it's literally like, a lot of people, they tend to behave as if designers or anyone in the creative industry or in the creative field, they're on standby, as if like, we've got nothing else to do. We're literally just there on the computer, just tapping away on Illustrator and Photoshop, just waiting for.
That brings into what we were talking about is like, sometimes within these creative industries, right? It's like there's no middle ground. Either people are extremely undervalued in what they do, or they're like heavily overvalued. Why do you think that is?
To be honest, I think it's down to either them being ignorant or unaware of how creatives work.
Yeah.
And also not realizing the benefits of having a creative person on board for your company or your brand.
How much do you think, for example, now, right, you've got these websites like Fiverr and all these kind of things where obviously now, we've got people like who are in Bangladesh or in Pakistan or in, China or wherever in the world that for them, they can kind of afford to do some of these jobs, maybe not to a similar standard or maybe to a different standard or a different ideal, right? But they can perhaps do it for cheaper, right? Because at the end of the day, the labor of someone living in London, paying London rents, or living in Loughborough or living wherever is not really comparable to someone like in the Middle East or in, Asia, etc. So do you think, has the game changed slightly because of that? Or
I mean, I've always heard other designers that I'm in touch with. We have like a little WhatsApp group and a few Telegram groups and whatnot where we discuss certain things with other Muslim designers. And one thing that we all kind of agree on is that you got websites and services like Fiverr, and but the thing is, they could easily produce the work that you're looking for. So, for example, if you want a logo, if you want a website, they could easily produce that. But a lot of the time, design involves a lot of problem solving. You need to sit down with the client, discuss what it is that you're trying to achieve with this logo, with this website, the branding package in general. And you only get that through communication and time. Yeah. Now, a lot of people on Fiverr, there are some great designers on there from what I've heard. Now, most times they produce work in an instant, and you're losing the essence of your vision through, the swift delivery.
Yeah.
Whereas on the other hand, when you're working with a client, like from what from my personal experience, when I work with a client, I try and work with them on a very close very close level. So there's a lot of back and forth communication. They'll give me their feedback. I take their feedback on board, implement it into my work. Then I run it by with them again. Like, okay, look, this is the work based on your feedback. Or sometimes I get an idea which I think might be better than what they've suggested, and then I'll experiment with that. I'm like, okay, why don't we try this? And I feel like when you're working with a designer simply on the basis of
just do this short kind of thing and then just complete it and that's it.
Yeah, you're just focused on the outcome, and you just want a quick outcome. You kind of lose, or you compromise on the vision. In the long run.
Yeah. I think that works for people who just want that quick fix.
Yeah.
Like they just want a logo because I just want to do X, Y, Z. But like you said, they're not thinking about the full brand identity, where the brand can go and whatever. And I think it's important because at the end of the day, if you create a brand, no matter what it's for, I mean, nowadays, like there's so many ways then to develop different income streams from these things, because you might be any kind of organization that is just, having a singular income stream. But now if you've created like this brand identity, especially like, for example, I'll give you an example in the Middle East, right? You can walk into some of these cheapo stores. Now, they're not necessarily done by the companies, but there's some stores here in Saudi, for example, where they literally sell like a mug with Facebook on it, right?
I've seen that.
A mug with Twitter, like Twitter t-shirts, right? Because they love the brand so much. WhatsApp, there's a WhatsApp mug. Like in the UK, you probably wouldn't have that, but it just shows you like how, even in different places, brand identity is so strong. So you might have a company and you think like, we're a friggin' messaging service, right? Why would we make a mug? But someone somewhere in the world might buy that mug, especially if your logo is looking nice. Do you know what I mean? 100%. And so that's why, like, even I saw a clip from one particular comedian. I wouldn't recommend him. I found out later he's got some, pretty wild stuff. But he was talking about, for example, Trump. His MAGA hat, was like iconic. You know what I mean? And it's like the fact that we're living in 2020 now, and you've literally got like the president of America, and he's making merchandise. That shows you like how merchandise can just be made out of anything, really.
Yeah, and if you think about it as well, like if you were to get a t-shirt, a regular t-shirt, you could sell it for like £2, £3. A plain t-shirt, you slap a logo on there, the value of that product rises like through the roof. You go to different stores, for example. I've seen this in Dubai quite a lot. You go to a shop, like you're walking through the mall and you see the Nike store, and just from your first glimpse, you know that when you go in there, you're walking out with an experience, not just a product. You go in there, they got sculptures. They got the logo in Arabic, like they made it into like a whole sculpture. They've got all sorts of like branding messages on there on display, and realistically, when you walk in there, you're walking out with an experience, or you're having an experience all the way through. That's why I believe branding.
I think Nike has been very good always at doing that.
I always say they're one step ahead. No pun intended.
Because I mean, like if you look at, for example, I'm into golf, right? So like Tiger Woods, right? As soon as they took Tiger, the first ad they did with Tiger was like playing on the whole, like he's the first black golfer. Like I can't play in most of the country clubs around America. And like it was really like boom. And if you look about when that was a long time ago. Do you know what I mean? That was before all of this, like Black Lives Matter stuff and this, that, whatever. It was a long time ago. So, they've always been kind of ahead of the curve.
Definitely.
And in terms of like designers, I mean, what would be the top tips in terms of like trying to be ahead of the curve, trying to, create, how do you as an artist try to, be one step ahead?
I wouldn't say I'm always one step ahead. But it's something that as creatives, we should always try and do. I think a lot of it comes down to like research. Research, listen to podcasts. I listen to a lot of podcasts by other designers
within the design world.
That's right. Yeah. So a lot of big designers from America, I'm a big fan of their work, and I listen to a lot of their podcasts. They have a lot of beneficial discussions on like, for example, how to negotiate with clients, not just that, but how to present your work, going beyond the the basic expectations of clients. So for example, they come to you for and you know what, in a way it kind of lines up with what we as Muslims believe, like doing things with ihsan. So for example, if a client comes to you, they are expecting 3 variations of a logo. You go out of your way and you produce 4 or 5.
Okay.
Just so that you're showing that the client that, okay, look, I'm providing you with more value than what you're expecting. Yeah. It could be the case that they end up going for the 4th or the 5th one. Yeah. If they're coming to you for, you know, a logo and some branding for, you know, merchandise or items for their business, then you go out of your way and you produce a bit more. Maybe you want to look at packaging design for that product or a product in the future. So the main thing is like research. I wouldn't have known all of what I just said if I hadn't been researching and listening to podcasts. And obviously we still have I personally have a lot more to learn as well. Listen to podcasts. There's a lot of beneficial graphic design books out there as well. Like loads. You could easily just go on YouTube, type in like, you know, top 10 design books for graphic designers, and you'll find other YouTubers who are recommending you know, different books, blogs. There's loads of blogs out there just talking about graphic design. You know, and not just logos. They're talking about packaging design. They're talking about clothing designs. Because you see like a lot of brands nowadays when they release a product, they have so many different elements of branding which work all in cohesion with each other. So they got the logo, they might have like an exclusive design that they might print on their garment. Now for that design, they got the packaging, the bag, the box, and so on. And then for that exclusive design or these designs, they might revamp their website to promote that particular collection. So everything just kind of like works in cohesion with each other. And then
I mean, it's like giving that experience that
that's
you
right
talked about.
So just researching and just expanding your horizon, because graphic design is really broad. It's not just a logo, it's more than that.
I mean, I noticed like even, you know, when we had a discussion before, I mentioned the brother Hamid Holloman.
That's right,
And you know, hopefully Hamid, shout out to Hamid Holloman, hopefully he's gonna come on the podcast, inshallah. But that brother, I noticed, you know, on his Instagram, a lot of the time he'll be like looking at different design books and getting inspiration for different things. And I mean, is there an element that you have to be like looking at current stuff, or it doesn't necessarily have to be current? It could just be like anything within the field.
I'd say it's a bit of both.
Yeah.
It helps to look at current design trends. Especially when it comes to like, you know, for example, certain design trends like typography. Typography is really broad.
What's in like?
Now sometimes a certain certain style of typography is a trend. That wasn't the trend last year or the year before, and then give it like 6 to 12 months, another style of typography comes in. Like, do you remember when we were young? Like a lot of the kids were running around like from our era. They used to wear like you know, these a lot of sports companies like Adidas, Nike, Reebok, they jumped on the hype as well, where they had like graffiti style t-shirts where they'd have like, you know, the tagging.
That's a bit like,
now that was a trend
cheesy
back,
now.
That was a trend back then. It's not going to work now. There was a time where they used to have these typographic t-shirts where they would the all over prints. Now again, that wouldn't necessarily work today, but it was a trend back then. So just keeping up with current trends, and again, you'll find that on websites, on blogs, on YouTube channels. A lot of designers, they're really clued up and up to date.
Do you think that, like, you know, with the dawn of social media, with the dawn of the internet, has the longevity of trends kind of like decreased, or do you think like it's always just things coming in and coming out? I mean, like, you know, like maybe things in the past, the longevity was a bit more because like there were certain areas like maybe London, Paris, New York, like where stuff would originate from. And it would take a while to reach other places, you know, and then it would be like a global thing. Like a lot of people around the world would maybe be into that trend. Whereas now it's like, you know, if something is cool in London or something is cool wherever, like within a week, it's everywhere, you know? So do you think that has decreased the longevity of trends, or like?
I mean, I wouldn't be able to give you an exact answer because I've never actually thought about it myself.
Okay.
But now that you do mention it, I would say, it probably has decreased due to the fact that we're all so connected with each other now. So when a trend pops off, in one part of the world, you know, everyone around on the other side of the world, they're picking up on it
Yeah.
because of social media, because of, you know, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever social media platforms are out there. In a way, I think that's quite cool, because it just means that every so often people are looking forward to new things, new designs are coming out. It just keeps that, you know, the creativity flowing.
Yeah, yeah. And let's bring it back to yourself. So like, what is one thing, you know, on your kind of like design journey to where you are now, what's one thing that you found success in, right? But you it kind of just came out of the blue, or, you know, like kind of, you know, just something from Allah that just, you know, you were like, wow, I didn't realize that would be so successful.
Yeah, I think it goes back to graphic design, specifically logos and branding, because growing up, I didn't really have you know, I mentioned I was into art, I was into graffiti, but I didn't have a specific passion for logos and branding. For me, it was more just about create something which looks good, and maybe people will buy it. And that's one of the reasons why I mentioned here when we met up the other day. I really wanted to get into like clothing design, because that was a huge passion of mine. I found a lot of brands like Bathing Ape, Air Jordan. A lot of these, you know, they're quite urban, but at the same time they're quite premium in terms of the design and the quality that they produce. I really found them quite inspiring. Not just those two, but then you got like Billionaire Boys Club, all these urban premium brands. So then I wanted to create something like that as a youngster. I thought this is the route I want to take. That's the whole reason why the whole panda thing came about.
Yeah.
Because back in the days, maybe you could bleep. I don't know if I mention some names. Can you bleep it out?
Better not to, but just
Okay.
maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So certain celebrities were using like characters at the time.
Okay.
Yeah. And I thought it was quite cool, like having like a little character to represent your brand.
Okay.
And you know, Bape, they still do that with their little baby Milo character.
Yeah.
So that's the whole reason why the panda came about. Now, obviously, I dropped the panda, I dropped the whole clothing line idea, but the name just stuck.
Yeah. I think that's like an online thing as well. You know, people have these aliases and they stick, and then it's like, if you in a way that's become like your brand to some extent. So like for you, throwing it away is like you kind of kind of take out some of that branding.
Now the whole logo thing kind of happened by, obviously not by accident. Everything happens by qadar Allah.
Yeah.
But it just happened very unexpectedly, where somebody just approached me and he was like, "Oh, I need a logo made." And at the time, I was kind of like, I was studying graphic design.
Yeah.
I wasn't amazing well, to be honest, I was rubbish at making logos.
Yeah.
I thought, okay, you know what, let me just do it. And I charged him like £40 or something like that, which is, you know, quite embarrassing, but you know, we start somewhere.
Yeah, of course.
And then,
of course,
so from there, I just thought, okay, you know what, there's a potential in this field. If I refine my craft, I started noticing a lot more folks were approaching me for logos specifically, and from there it just kind of just kicked off, and I thought, okay, you know what, let this be the main thing that I focus on. And for me, it's really interesting because the logo is the face of your brand. You know, when you see a logo, when you see the McDonald's logo, you know what to expect, you know what they're about. When you see the Nike logo, you know what they're about. Same with Adidas, Gucci, you know, Louis Vuitton, whatever logo it is. You know, the moment you see that logo on the front of a store, you see somebody carrying it on their shopping bag, you see somebody wearing it, you know what to expect. You know that, okay, this is some premium stuff, or this is some quality stuff. So I thought, okay, you know what, why not assist people in their project, whether that's a charity project, you know, a community project, their business, whatever it is. Let me produce the face of the brand, because essentially that's the big thing. That's the first interaction a person is going to have with that company. So I want to be part of that process.
Yeah, and I think that's nice, you know, because at the end of the day, that ties into what kind of you were doing before, right? Where you were saying that you were interested in art with a message.
Yeah.
Right? So in a way, like, if you look from a graphic design perspective, or if you're looking from an artistic perspective, like the logo is got the message of the brand.
That's
you know?
right.
And if you're able to, in just like such a small symbol, capture the image of the brand, right? You know what you're getting into. It's like right now, you know, you can see the Jordan logo. Like, what is it?
Yeah.
Oh, it's a basketball company. It's Jordan's basketball company. It's got the iconic thing, you know, the message, boom, it hits you. So I think that's, you know, spot on. And you mentioned, like, in terms of the clothing, is that something that you're looking to get into, like in the near
Yeah,
future?
I'd love to get back into it. Can we mention how we met?
Oh yeah.
Because we actually met about 10 years ago, or we got connected with each other through clothing.
Yeah.
Because at that time I was designing and producing my own t-shirts.
Yeah.
And there were a few folks that I was connected with, and you know, I think you reached out to me or I reached out to you.
Yeah.
And
I actually can't even remember, but I remember now
Yeah.
that the t-shirt was.
That's right.
was
Yeah.
dope.
And
We
then
might put a picture of it somewhere. Like,
yeah,
just to
maybe we could
show.
put it on the screen.
Yeah.
So I made a particular design based on Arabic calligraphy, and it was kind of like, it was, you know, maybe if we show the picture, the viewers will get an understanding.
Yeah.
But clothing has always been a passion of mine. It's something I kind of like dabbled in for a little bit.
Yeah.
I was designing my t-shirts, making them, selling them off, and it kind of just fizzled out. Simply because I was focused on graphic design. But it's something that I definitely would like to come back to. I know a lot of brothers who are, or not a lot of brothers, but I know quite a few brothers who are doing it, and they're doing it very well. Allahumma barik. They're doing it very, very well. And when I see them doing their stuff, every time I speak to them, I'm like, oh man, just seeing your stuff just makes me want to jump back on it. But it's something, it's in the pipeline, inshallah.
Yeah. Inshallah. And so I think this is a good question to kind of like wrap things up and to begin to wind down. I know you've been traveling and shopping, and so, you know, you're tired, I'm tired as well. But what would you do, right, if you were given 10 times the budget you've ever been given, right? Or, you know, like a massive commission to just do free reign, whether it's art, whether it's clothing, whatever it was.
Yeah.
What would be kind of your like ideal work to just go ahead and work on?
You know what? That's a difficult question to answer from the perspective of a designer, being a designer who works for clients. But it's a tough one, man.
I mean, what would you do with the budget? Like, in terms, would you do something more graphic design branding, or would you do something clothing, or would you do something arty? Like,
I do a bit of everything, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'd invest in it, like have my own little studio space.
Yeah.
A graphic design studio with, like, you know, a meeting room for clients. You know, right now we do meetings over Zoom.
Yeah.
But I'd like to like have them, you know, in a meeting room where we present ideas together. That's something I would really like. And I've seen a lot of designers, you know, the big designers, they do have that, and it's quite admirable that they have this kind of setting. I'd love to do that. I'd love to do merchandise as well, because a lot of graphic designers as well, what they do is when they've established their agency, and this is something I really want to do in the next year, inshallah, is that what they do is not only do they provide, you know, service to clients, but they also accumulate like kind of like a following of you know, like a fan base, and they start producing merchandise for those. And it's quite smart because not everyone out there is looking for a piece of a graphic design.
I think that ties into exactly what we said before. It's like, you know, the whole merch thing in terms of like, okay, you're now like a design house.
Yep.
But your design house is like popular and whatever.
Yeah.
And just through having that large budget, you could do some artsy stuff.
Because there's a lot of big graphic designers, especially from America. They have a very high position in the design community and the design industry.
Yeah.
And they produce things like what we would see as random, but because they've got a following, they've got a fan base, they're able to do that. So
maybe a better question is, someone comes and now you go, okay, you got $1 million budget. What are you first doing with it?
Building a studio. I'm making merch. I'm going to build connection with big brands. Yeah. Because that's one thing I really want to do is I want to work with, you know, mainstream brands, not necessarily just Muslim brands. Yeah. But for example, I want to work with the likes of Adidas, Sony, all that stuff. You know, big brands out there, because I find it really like inspiring when you're walking down, you know, the street and you're seeing someone's work up on the billboard. And alhamdulillah, I've had that. I've had some of my designs on billboards. Yeah. But I want to go to Burj Khalifa.
Yeah. Mashallah. Allahumma barik. Mashallah, yeah, no. So definitely appreciate you coming time. I think actually just one more question before we finish.
Go for it.
That I always like to ask our guests is if you were to, have your younger self or a young brother who's really keen, he's really arty, he wants to get into design, what's like the main advice that you would give to him?
First and foremost, have tawakkul.
Yeah.
Have patience. Make a lot of dua. Because obviously everything happens by the permission of Allah.
Yeah.
Understand that if things don't go your way, there's khair in it, there's good in it. And if it goes your way, then be grateful for Allah opening that door to you.
Yeah.
Secondly, just research, practice, be patient. I do get a lot of brothers who message me on Instagram saying, I'm trying to get into graphic design. What do you advise me with? I always tell them the same thing, like practice, be patient, and just do a lot of research.
Yeah.
Eventually what will happen is through you experimenting and practicing, it will just pick up traction. People will know. And through that you refine your skills. Nobody turns, into a great designer overnight.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's only through refining your skills, practicing and so on. So obviously have a lot of patience, practice your skills, research, and then just put yourself out there.
Yeah.
Don't ever think to yourself, oh, you know what, I'm not good enough. Like, we all start somewhere. If I was to show you some of my designs, and maybe we could pop it up on the screen.
Yeah.
Trust me, it was terrible. But the first one always leads to, your 10th one and then the 100th one. And by then you'll have a great piece of work.
Yeah, I mean, for want of not being too cliche, it's all part of the journey.
Definitely.
So that's it, bro. And Jazakallah khair for coming. Hopefully you can come back to Mecca again.
Inshallah, I hope
Try and
so.
do a part 2. Maybe we'll look back and I'll be like, oh man, the first podcast I did, man, I didn't do you justice. But like,
maybe next time
inshallah.
I'll come, hopefully by then, inshallah, I'll have some merch, so we'll use them as little props.
Yeah. We'll grab the merch, inshallah. Jazakallah khair, and
Jazakallah khair,
appreciate for coming down, man.
Honor's all mine, man.
Barakallah feek. Assalamu alaikum.
Life is one big road with a lot of signs and more signs. You gotta make up your mind to face reality all the time. No.